Discussion on verses 1 to 5 of 5. This chapter opens by directing people to reflect upon a clear and observable reality. That Allah, the Exalted, alone governs the affairs of the universe, and therefore He alone is the one from whom refuge should be sought in every difficulty. These difficulties are not random occurrences, but tests through which it becomes evident whether a person responds with patience, trust, and obedience. Chapter 113 Al-Falaq, verse 1.
Say, I seek refuge in the Lord of Daybreak.
This verse is not merely a supplication, but an invitation to reflect deeply on creation itself. By drawing attention to the daybreak, it points to a daily phenomenon that every person witnesses, yet often overlooks. The transition from darkness to light is a powerful sign of control, precision, and renewal, demonstrating that the one who brings light after darkness is fully capable of removing hardship after difficulty. Reflecting on even this single aspect of creation is sufficient to guide a person towards recognizing the oneness of Allah, the Exalted, and understanding that He alone deserves obedience in all circumstances. The movement of the sun is one of the clearest examples of this precise control. Its path ensures that the earth receives a carefully measured balance of light and darkness. The alternation between day and night, along with their gradual variation throughout the year, allows human life to function in a stable and sustainable manner. If the days were excessively long, people would be overwhelmed by fatigue and unable to maintain productivity. If the nights were extended beyond measure, essential activities such as earning a livelihood, seeking knowledge, and maintaining social order would be severely disrupted. Likewise, if nights were too short, the lack of sufficient rest would damage physical and mental well-being. This balance extends beyond human life to the natural world. Crops depend on regulated cycles of light and darkness, and any disruption in these cycles would negatively affect agriculture, leading to shortages in food supply for both humans and animals. The harmony observed in these systems indicates not randomness, but deliberate design and control. Such perfect coordination also points to a deeper reality, the oneness of Allah, the Exalted. If multiple independent powers controlled the universe, each with its own will, their conflicting intentions would inevitably lead to disorder. Chapter 21 Al-Anbiya, verse 22.
Had there been within them, i.e., the heavens and earth gods besides Allah, they both would have been ruined.
Similarly, the moon plays a vital and complementary role within this system. By reflecting light during the night, it provides guidance in darkness, which historically has been essential for travel across deserts and seas, routes that remain significant for global trade even today. Its phases also contribute to regulating ocean tides, which are crucial for maintaining ecological balance. Any significant disturbance in these tides could have far-reaching consequences for marine life and coastal environments. In addition, both the sun and the moon serve as natural measures of time, enabling people to organize their lives, plan their activities, and fulfill their responsibilities. The precision in their movement and positioning within the solar system reflects an extraordinary level of balance and coordination. When a person reflects on these signs collectively, it becomes clear that such harmony cannot be the result of chance or multiple competing forces. Rather, it points to the existence of a single, all-powerful creator who controls every aspect of existence with wisdom and precision. This reflection is meant to lead to a practical conclusion, that just as Allah, the Exalted, alone controls the universe, He alone should be relied upon and obeyed. Chapter 113 Al-Falaq, verses 1 to 2.
Say, I seek refuge in the Lord of Daybreak, from the evil of that which He created.
It is important to understand that seeking refuge in Allah, the Exalted, is not confined to words alone. True refuge is realized when a person aligns their actions with His guidance, ensuring that every blessing they have been granted is used in a manner that is pleasing to Him. This transforms supplication from a mere statement into a lived reality. Through this practical obedience, a person gains not only protection from external harms, but also develops inner stability, clarity, and purpose. Their life becomes organized and balanced, as they correctly prioritize responsibilities, relationships, and personal conduct, leading to a sound mental and physical state and a readiness for their accountability on the Day of Judgment. Furthermore, it is important to address a common misconception regarding the existence of hardship and what is perceived as evil in the world. Some claim that if Allah the Exalted is all-wise, then such things should not exist. However, this claim overlooks the very purpose of worldly life. This life has been designed as a test, and a test cannot be meaningful or just without the presence of contrasting conditions. Ease and difficulty, comfort and hardship, and right and wrong must all exist in order for a person's choices to carry significance. If hardship, difficulty, or forms of evil did not exist, then this world would effectively resemble paradise, where no test remains. In such a situation, obedience would lose its value, as there would be no challenge, no sacrifice, and no restraint of desires. Moreover, the existence of opposing choices between obedience and disobedience ensures that justice is established. Those who strive to use their blessings correctly, despite challenges, are distinguished from those who misuse them. This distinction is essential for accountability on the Day of Judgment, where every individual will be recompensed according to their choices. Therefore, the presence of hardship and what appears as evil is not a flaw in creation, but a necessary component of a purposeful and just system. Allah, the Exalted, does not create anything without wisdom. Through the balance of ease and difficulty, a person is given the opportunity to demonstrate sincerity, develop strength of character, and attain lasting peace by choosing obedience over desire. Chapter 21 Al-Anbiya, verse 35.
Every soul will taste death. And we test you with evil and with good as trial, and to us you will be returned.
In addition, a person should not limit their understanding of events to their outward appearance by hastily labeling them as purely good or bad. Rather, they are encouraged to look deeper and recognize the wisdom and guidance contained within each situation, the message within the bottle. The external event is merely the vessel through which a meaningful lesson is delivered, and focusing solely on the surface distracts from the true purpose behind it. This imbalance often occurs in two ways. During times of ease, a person may become overly delighted and absorbed in the blessing itself, leading to heedlessness of its purpose and the responsibility attached to it. Conversely, during times of difficulty, a person may become overwhelmed with grief, which clouds their ability to reflect and extract the benefit hidden within the hardship. In both cases, the message is missed because the focus remains on the bottle rather than its contents. Chapter 57 Al-Hadid, verse 23.
In order that you not despair over what has eluded you, and not exult in pride over what he has given you.
This verse does not deny natural human emotions, such as happiness or sadness. Rather, it cautions against excess, extreme joy that leads to arrogance and heedlessness, and extreme grief that leads to despair and loss of clarity. By maintaining moderation in emotional responses, a person preserves the ability to reflect, think clearly, and respond in a way that aligns with divine guidance. Adopting this balanced mindset allows a person to focus on the deeper meaning behind every situation. Each event carries a potential lesson. At times, a difficulty may serve as a wake-up call, urging a person to return to Allah, the Exalted, before their time runs out. At other times, it may be a means of elevating their rank, strengthening their character, or cleansing them of past shortcomings. Similarly, moments of ease may serve as tests of gratitude, responsibility, and humility, reminding a person not to become attached to temporary worldly comforts. When a person actively reflects on these underlying messages, they transform life's experiences into opportunities for growth. Their worldly life becomes more structured and meaningful, and their religious life becomes stronger and more conscious. In contrast, those who fail to engage in this deeper reflection merely pass through events without gaining insight or improvement, remaining unchanged despite the many lessons presented to them. Therefore, true awareness lies in recognizing that every situation carries purpose. By focusing on the message rather than the surface, a person is able to grow, refine their character, and move closer towards a life of balance, understanding, and preparedness for their ultimate accountability. It has been established that the presence of hardship and forms of evil is a necessary part of the test of this world. Therefore, a person must not behave as though this life is, or should be, a place of perfect ease like paradise. Instead, they are required to remain alert and take practical steps to protect themselves from harm, both outward and inward. Chapter 113 Al-Falaq, verse 3.
And from the evil of darkness when it settles.
This verse highlights that certain forms of harm become more prevalent during specific circumstances, such as the night. Darkness often conceals wrongdoing and encourages heedlessness, making it a time when harmful influences and distractions can spread more easily. Among these are forms of entertainment and gatherings that promote indulgence, negligence, and the abandonment of moral boundaries. Such environments not only distract a person from their purpose, but also gradually weaken their discipline and awareness of accountability. One of the most effective ways to guard against these influences is to occupy the night with voluntary worship, particularly the voluntary night prayer. By doing so, a person replaces environments of heedlessness with moments of reflection, devotion, and self-discipline. This act of worship serves as both protection and purification, redirecting one's time and energy towards what is beneficial. Voluntary night worship is especially significant because it reflects sincerity. It is performed at a time when others are asleep and no external recognition is expected. This transforms the act into a private and sincere connection with Allah, the Exalted, demonstrating true devotion. It becomes a moment of intimate reflection, where a person can turn to their Creator without distraction. Its virtue is emphasized in a hadith found in Sunan and Nasai, number 1614, which describes it as the best form of voluntary prayer. This highlights its elevated status among acts of worship and its unique ability to strengthen faith and character. Furthermore, the highest rank attainable by any human being, granted to the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, is directly associated with this form of worship. Chapter 17 Al-Isra, verse 79.
And from part of the night pray with it, i.e., recitation of the Quran as additional worship for you. It is expected that your Lord will resurrect you to a praise station.
This connection demonstrates that those who consistently engage in night worship are placed on a path towards elevated ranks, both in this world and the hereafter. It reflects dedication, discipline, and a sincere desire to draw closer to Allah, the Exalted. In addition, a hadith found in Jami at Tirmidhi, number 3579, explains that a person is closest to Allah, the Exalted, during the last portion of the night. This time therefore represents a unique opportunity for supplication, remembrance, and reflection, where distractions are minimal and sincerity is more easily attained. For those who seek their supplications to be answered, the night offers a special opportunity. A hadith found in Sahih Muslim, number 1770, indicates that there is a specific time during every night in which supplications are accepted. This encourages a person to take advantage of this period by turning to Allah, the Exalted, with their needs, hopes, and concerns. Beyond spiritual benefits, establishing the voluntary night prayer also has practical effects. It helps a person avoid harmful environments and unnecessary gatherings, promotes discipline, and supports both mental and physical well-being. A hadith found in Jami at Tirmidhi, number 3549, indicates that it can even contribute to physical health, demonstrating that its benefits extend beyond the spiritual realm. In order to establish this practice consistently, a person must take practical steps. Moderation in eating and drinking, especially before sleep, helps prevent laziness. Managing one's daily energy, including taking a short rest when needed, supports the ability to wake during the night. Most importantly, avoiding sins and maintaining obedience during the day strengthens the heart, making it easier to engage in worship at night. Those who strive to live in accordance with the teachings of the Holy Quran and the traditions of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, will find that such acts of devotion become more accessible and consistent. In essence, the night can either become a time of heedlessness or a time of elevation. The one who fills it with remembrance and worship transforms it into a source of protection, growth, and closeness to Allah, the Exalted, thereby safeguarding themselves from harm while progressing towards lasting peace and success. The commonly understood meaning of this verse is a command to seek protection from the harms associated with sorcery and hidden forms of evil. Chapter 113 Al-Falaq, verse 4.
And from the evil of the blowers in knots.
This refers to those who engage in practices intended to harm others through hidden and deceptive means. The verse therefore teaches a person to turn directly to Allah, the Exalted, for protection from such dangers, rather than placing reliance on created means that are themselves weak and uncertain. The Holy Quran has connected practicing sorcery with unbelief. Chapter 2 Al-Baqarah, verse 102.
But they, i.e., the two angels, do not teach anyone unless they say, "We are a trial, so do not disbelieve by practicing magic."
Some may incorrectly assume that it is only a major sin, when in reality it carries far greater spiritual consequences, because it involves beliefs and practices that contradict reliance upon Allah, the Exalted. This severity is reinforced in a hadith found in Sahih Bukhari, number 2766, where the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, listed sorcery among the destructive sins, those that can lead a person towards ruin if they do not sincerely repent. This classification highlights its grave danger and the necessity of completely avoiding it. At its core, sorcery reflects a corrupt belief about power and control. The one who engages in it behaves as though outcomes can be manipulated independently of the will of Allah, the Exalted, as if created means could rival His decree. This contradicts the fundamental belief that all benefit and harm occur only by His permission. For this reason, it is not simply an action but a distortion of belief itself. In addition, a person must avoid becoming preoccupied with the idea of black magic, as excessive focus on it often leads to harmful patterns of thinking and behavior. When individuals become engrossed in such matters, they begin to interpret their difficulties through a distorted lens. Instead of first examining their own actions, correcting their conduct, and remaining steadfast in the obedience of Allah, the Exalted, while patiently awaiting relief, they may turn to unqualified and unreliable individuals who claim to resolve problems through questionable spiritual practices. These individuals often cause greater harm than benefit. Rather than offering genuine solutions, they plant seeds of fear and suspicion, leading a person to develop a far more damaging condition than the original problem, namely paranoia. They may convince people that their difficulties are the result of hidden forces, such as unseen creation or deliberate harm caused by others. While unseen creation does exist, its interference in everyday worldly matters is not the norm. Exaggerating its role leads to confusion and imbalance. As a result, a person may begin to overanalyze ordinary events, becoming overly suspicious of harmless situations. This mindset can extend to relationships, causing mistrust towards friends, family, and others without valid reason. Over time, this suspicion damages bonds, creates unnecessary conflict, and leads to isolation and emotional distress. What began as an attempt to find answers instead becomes a source of ongoing anxiety and instability. The correct approach is to strengthen faith through acquiring and acting upon authentic Islamic knowledge. A person who grounds themselves in the teachings of the Holy Quran and the traditions of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, develops clarity and sound judgment. This protects them from being misled by those who lack knowledge and credibility. Individuals who are unable to resolve even their own difficulties, let alone the difficulties of others. Strong faith also nurtures true reliance upon Allah, the Exalted. It anchors the heart in a firm understanding that all benefit and harm occur only by His permission. Even if the entire creation were to gather with the intention of harming someone, they would not be able to do so unless Allah, the Exalted, had already allowed it. Likewise, no benefit can reach a person unless it has been decreed for them. This principle is emphasized in the well-known hadith found in Jami at Tirmidhi, number 2516. Recognizing that every situation unfolds according to a fixed and wise decree brings a sense of calm and stability. It removes the need for fear of hidden forces and redirects attention towards what truly matters: self-improvement, sincere obedience, and patience. Instead of becoming trapped in suspicion and anxiety, a person learns to respond to challenges with clarity, trust, and balanced thinking. In this way, strong faith acts as a safeguard against both external misguidance and internal confusion. It protects a person from falling into paranoia, preserves their relationships, and enables them to navigate life's difficulties with confidence and peace of mind, firmly grounded in reliance upon Allah, the Exalted. Another meaningful interpretation of verse 4 is that it refers not only to sorcery, but to those who plant harmful suggestions into the hearts of others, subtly influencing them to abandon their commitment to obey Allah, the Exalted. Chapter 113 Al-Falaq, verse 4.
From those who cast evil suggestions in firm resolutions.
In this sense, this verse serves as a powerful warning against corrupting influences, and more specifically, against harmful companionship. Human beings are inherently social, and their thoughts, behaviors, and priorities are shaped, often profoundly, by the company they keep. This influence may be immediate, or it may develop gradually over time, but it is rarely neutral. Companionship acts as a silent architect of one's character. The Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, illustrated this reality in a hadith found in Sunan Abu Dawood, number 4833, where he compared good and bad companions to a perfume seller and a blacksmith. One leaves with fragrance, while the other departs with smoke and harm. This example demonstrates that even passive association has consequences. From one perspective, righteous companionship can be viewed as a form of protection. Those who surround themselves with sincere and obedient individuals are constantly reminded, through words, actions, and even silent example, of their purpose in life. Such companions encourage reflection, accountability, and the correct use of blessings. They help maintain a balanced mental and spiritual state, guiding a person to place everything and everyone in their proper position. In their presence, obedience becomes easier, sincerity is strengthened, and one's awareness at Judgment Day remains alive. Another perspective highlights the gradual and often unnoticed harm of bad companionship. A person may initially believe they are unaffected by those around them, but over time, attitudes shift, priorities change, and boundaries weaken. What was once clearly wrong may begin to appear acceptable, and what was once valued may be neglected. This slow transformation is particularly dangerous because it occurs without immediate awareness. Eventually, the individual begins to misuse the blessings granted to them, whether it be time, relationships, wealth, or influence, leading to imbalance, inner unrest, and spiritual decline. It can also be understood that harmful companions do not always openly invite others to wrongdoing. Often, their influence is subtle, through normalizing sinful behavior, mocking righteousness, or presenting disobedience as harmless or even desirable. In this way, they resemble those described in the verse, individuals who blow into knots, meaning they quietly and persistently unravel a person's resolve and commitment. Their effect is not always loud or obvious, but it is deeply damaging. From a psychological perspective, companionship directly affects a person's sense of identity and belonging. People naturally seek acceptance, and this desire can lead them to conform to the expectations of their social circle, even when those expectations contradict obedience to Allah, the Exalted. When this occurs, a person may begin prioritizing the approval of others over divine guidance, resulting in inner conflict, anxiety, and a loss of peace of mind. No matter how much they try to satisfy others, they will remain unsettled, as true tranquility can only be achieved through sincere obedience to Allah, the Exalted. On the other hand, choosing righteous companions fosters clarity, stability, and purpose. Such individuals not only support one another in times of difficulty, but also help each other remain grounded during times of ease. They encourage gratitude, patience, and reflection, ensuring that life's tests, whether pleasant or painful, are approached with the correct mindset. This leads to a harmonious state, where a person's mental, emotional, and spiritual faculties are aligned. Ultimately, this interpretation reinforces a critical principle: companionship is a decisive factor in one's journey. A person's friends can either elevate them toward success in both worlds, or pull them toward loss and regret. Therefore, a wise individual carefully selects those they associate with, prioritizing those who remind them of Allah, the Exalted, encourage obedience, and help them prepare for their accountability on the Day of Judgment. As mentioned earlier, another meaningful interpretation of verse 4 is that it refers not only to sorcery, but to those who plant harmful suggestions into the hearts of others, subtly influencing them to abandon their commitment to obey Allah, the Exalted. When a person chooses to follow a path that differs from those around them, especially a path grounded in obedience to Allah, the Exalted, it often unsettles others. This is because such a choice can expose the weaknesses in their own decisions, particularly when those decisions are driven by personal desires rather than divine guidance. As a result, instead of reflecting on themselves, some individuals respond with criticism, mockery, or pressure. This reaction may even come from close circles, including family members, as people naturally resist anything that challenges their sense of comfort or self-justification. From another angle, this reaction is not always rooted in hostility, but in insecurity. When someone witnesses discipline, restraint, and commitment to higher principles, it can create an internal conflict within them. Rather than confronting that discomfort, they may attempt to bring the other person down to their level, so they no longer feel inadequate. In this way, criticism becomes a defense mechanism rather than a genuine intellectual objection. In addition, modern societal influences intensify this pressure. Social media, fashion trends, and cultural expectations constantly promote a lifestyle centered on self-expression, indulgence, and external validation. Within such an environment, adherence to Islamic teachings, which emphasize modesty, discipline, and accountability, can appear restrictive to those who prioritize worldly success and social status. Consequently, the call to Islam is often perceived as an obstacle to ambition, rather than a guide to balanced success. This perception fuels opposition, both subtle and overt, across various platforms. Those who make a sincere effort to live in accordance with Islamic teachings, which promote moderation, self-restraint, and the responsible use of blessings, often encounter criticism from individuals who prefer a lifestyle driven by unchecked desires. Such people tend to act upon impulse without discipline, a pattern of behavior that Islamic teachings warn against due to its harmful consequences. As a result, they may attempt to discourage others from embracing Islam or from practicing it properly, instead promoting a way of life centered on unrestricted personal gratification. In many cases, this opposition focuses on specific aspects of Islam in an attempt to weaken its appeal. One commonly targeted area is the dress code for women, which is frequently criticized in isolation. However, a closer and more thoughtful examination reveals that such criticism is often selective and inconsistent. While objections may be raised against Islamic guidelines of dress, similar standards of appearance in other areas of life, such as those observed in professions like law enforcement, the military, healthcare, education, and business, are rarely subjected to the same level of scrutiny or opposition. This inconsistency suggests that the criticism is not always rooted in a genuine concern for principles, but rather in a discomfort with the emphasis Islam places on discipline, modesty, and self-control. Those who reflect carefully are able to recognize that such arguments often lack depth and coherence, as they single out Islamic practices while overlooking comparable norms elsewhere. In reality, it is the very strength of Islamic principles, its call to regulate desires, maintain dignity, and live with purpose, that provokes resistance from those who prefer a life free from restraint. The disciplined conduct of those who adhere to these teachings stands in contrast to a lifestyle based on impulse, and it is this contrast that often leads to criticism. Chapter 113 Al-Falaq, verse 4.
From those who cast evil suggestions in firm resolutions.
This can be understood as a warning against all forms of influence that attempt to weaken a person's commitment after they have resolved to obey Allah, the Exalted. These influences may come through people, environments, or even persistent ideas that seek to normalize disobedience. Their danger lies in their persistence and subtlety. They do not always force a person away from truth, but gradually erode their determination until compromise feels acceptable. From a deeper reflection, this highlights that the struggle to remain steadfast is not only internal but also external. A person must guard their intentions, but also their environment. Without this awareness, even a firm resolution can be weakened over time through repeated exposure to negative influences. Despite these challenges, the one who remains committed to sincere obedience to Allah, the Exalted, gains something far greater than the approval of people: inner stability and clarity. By aligning actions with divine guidance, a person learns to use every blessing correctly, whether it is time, relationships, wealth, or ability. This alignment produces balance within their mental, emotional, and physical state, allowing them to organize their life with purpose and direction. Even when difficulties arise, they are able to navigate them with patience and understanding, knowing that every situation carries meaning and leads toward accountability on the Day of Judgment. On the other hand, seeking the approval of others at the expense of obedience leads to the opposite outcome. A person becomes pulled in multiple directions, trying to satisfy conflicting expectations. This results in confusion, instability, and a gradual loss of purpose. The blessings they possess, instead of bringing benefit, become sources of stress. Relationships become strained, ambitions become burdens, and the heart remains unsettled. Even if such a person attains material comfort, they cannot attain true tranquility, because they have disconnected themselves from the very source of peace. Ultimately, this discussion emphasizes a fundamental reality. True peace of mind is not found in conforming to people, but in remaining steadfast upon the obedience of Allah, the Exalted. While external pressures may be strong, they are temporary and limited. In contrast, the peace, guidance, and reward that come from sincerity are lasting and far greater. Therefore, a person must remain firm in their commitment, recognizing that every challenge they face in upholding their faith is, in reality, a means of elevating them in both this world and the hereafter. This chapter concludes by encouraging people to practically seek refuge with Allah, the Exalted, through His obedience from the envy of others, another widespread evil. Chapter 113 Al-Falaq, verse 5.
And from the evil of an envier when he envies.
Envy is not a minor emotional reaction, but a serious spiritual disease with far-reaching consequences. At its root, it reflects dissatisfaction with the decree of Allah, the Exalted. The envier, in essence, objects, whether openly or inwardly, to the way blessings have been distributed, as though believing that they themselves were more deserving of what has been granted to others. This attitude undermines humility and weakens trust in divine wisdom. For this reason, envy is treated as a major sin, as it involves an implicit challenge to the wisdom behind the distribution of Allah, the Exalted. From another angle, envy is self-destructive even before it harms others. When it is allowed to manifest outwardly through speech or actions, such as backbiting, slander, or causing harm to others, it ultimately destroys the envier's own good deeds. As warned in Sunan Ibn Majah, number 4210, envy consumes good deeds just as fire consumes wood. This illustrates that the ultimate loss returns to the envier, even if they believe they are harming someone else. It is important to distinguish between blameworthy envy and a limited form of lawful desire. Wishing to possess a similar blessing without wishing its removal from another is permissible. However, even this form is only praiseworthy when it relates to matters of faith and righteousness. As advised in Sahih Muslim, number 1896, one may aspire to be like the person who correctly uses knowledge to teach others, or like the one who acquires lawful wealth and spends it in ways pleasing to Allah, the Exalted. Outside of these contexts, focusing excessively on worldly blessings of others can distract a person from their own duties and personal accountability. A deeper reflection shows that envy often arises from a lack of understanding a divine wisdom. Allah, the Exalted, grants to each person what is most suitable for them according to His perfect knowledge. Chapter 2 Al-Baqarah, verse 216.
But perhaps you hate a thing and it is good for you, and perhaps you love a thing and it is bad for you. And Allah knows while you know not.
Therefore, instead of directing their attention toward the blessings of others with envy, a person should focus on using the blessings they themselves have been granted in ways that are pleasing to Allah, the Exalted, as outlined in the Holy Quran and the traditions of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. This approach brings about increased blessings, tranquility, and success in both worlds, as it enables a person to achieve a balanced mental and physical state, and to correctly place everything and everyone within their life. Chapter 14 Ibrahim, verse 7.
If you are grateful, I will surely increase you in favor.
In contrast, envy leads a person away from obedience to Allah, the Exalted, because it causes them to misuse the blessings that have been entrusted to them. As a result, they fall into imbalance in both mind and body, begin to misplace priorities and relationships in their life, and ultimately fail to prepare properly for their accountability on the Day of Judgment. This inevitably produces stress, difficulty, and hardship in both this life and the next, even if outwardly they appear to enjoy material comfort or success. The one who is envied, on the other hand, is instructed to respond to the verbal and physical harm of the envier with patience, while only defending themselves within the limits set by Islam. Patience in this context means refraining from complaint through speech and conduct, and continuing to maintain sincere obedience to Allah, the Exalted, meaning the correct use of blessings in accordance with the Holy Quran and the traditions of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. Through this response, a person is effectively seeking refuge with Allah, the Exalted, from the harm of the envier. Allah, the Exalted, then grants protection from the negative effects of the envier, even if such protection is not immediately apparent to the individual. This is because Allah, the Exalted, acts according to His perfect and infinite knowledge and wisdom, rather than according to the limited perception and understanding of human beings. To conclude, a person must accept and act upon Islamic teachings for their own benefit, even when doing so appears to conflict with personal desires. Their attitude should resemble that of a wise patient who follows a doctor's guidance, trusting that the prescribed treatment, though sometimes bitter or restrictive, is ultimately for their well-being. In the same way, adherence to Islamic guidance leads to true well-being, producing a balanced mental and physical state, and ensuring that everything and everyone in a person's life is placed in its proper position. Just as a competent physician possesses knowledge that the patient does not fully understand, Allah, the Exalted, possesses complete and perfect knowledge of human nature, circumstances, and outcomes. Therefore, only He can provide guidance that consistently leads to true balance, stability, and success in both this world and the next. Human knowledge, despite extensive research and development, remains limited. It cannot account for every situation, foresee every consequence, or eliminate all forms of psychological and physical distress. It is also influenced by bias, incomplete experience, and restricted understanding. For this reason, it cannot replace divine guidance in achieving complete human well-being. Allah, the Exalted, has provided this perfect guidance through the Holy Quran and the traditions of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. A person can observe the difference in outcomes between those who align their lives with this guidance and those who do not. Those who apply it correctly often experience greater clarity, discipline, and balance, while those who ignore it frequently struggle with imbalance, misprioritization, and internal unrest. At the same time, Islamic teachings do not demand blind acceptance without reflection. Rather, they encourage sincere contemplation and understanding, so that a person recognizes the truth through clear signs and reasoning. Chapter 12 Yusuf, verse 108.
Say, this is my way, I invite to Allah with insight, I and those who follow me.
In addition, it must be understood that control over human hearts, the true center of emotional stability and peace of mind, belongs solely to Allah, the Exalted. He determines how a person experiences joy, sorrow, contentment, or distress. Chapter 53 and Najm, verse 43.
And that it is He who makes one laugh and weep.
This highlights that inner emotional states ultimately lie under divine control. Therefore, lasting peace of mind cannot be achieved independently of Allah, the Exalted. From this perspective, it becomes clear that true tranquility is granted by Allah, the Exalted, to those who sincerely strive to align their lives with His guidance. When a person correctly uses the blessings they have been given in accordance with Islamic teachings, they are not only following divine instruction, but also placing themselves in the path toward balance, clarity, and inner peace. Chapter 16 and Nahl, verse 97.
Whoever does righteousness, whether male or female, while he is a believer, we will surely cause him to live a good life, and we will surely give them their reward in the hereafter according to the best of what they used to do.
All praise is due to Allah, Lord of the worlds, and may peace and blessings be upon His final messenger, Muhammad, his noble family and companions.